Two, one.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of BTC Unplugged, Schulich Business Technology Club's podcast series. I'm Abdul,
And I'm Parul.
Hey guys.
and we are excited to announce Mr. Dennis Gorya, our guest for today. Dennis is a Schulich alumnus and the CEO, founder, and partner at Title Commerce. He's a trailblazer in the headless commerce and content management systems. The e-commerce industry is energetic and rapidly growing industry, and Dennis here is on the leading edge of that wave.
We are very thrilled to have you, Dennis. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm elated to be here.
Awesome.
So let's kick things off. Dennis, could you take us through your journey from Schulich to the tech industry?
Sure thing. I think I can backtrack a little bit before Schulich. So maybe starting in elementary school. I had a very early start into entrepreneurship. Actually into work, into my career in general. So I started working at a magic shop at age 12 or 13, and I had a bit of a stint there, so 5 to 6 years.
Nice.
Now, working in a magic shop, you typically get a bit of a mix of customers. You get very, very intellectual people, the accountants, the lawyers, the management consultants that just need a hobby and an escape. And then you also get the lunatics, right? So there's a big, nice, healthy mix of both. So one fine day, a gentleman walks into the store, and I start to sell him magic tricks. He keeps coming back week after week, and he starts complaining to my boss and keeps telling him, "This kid just sold me 3 of the same thing. Do something about it." My boss gives me a big thumbs up and says, "Keep doing it." So effectively, that was kind of my start into it. So who I met that day ended up becoming my mentor and like a father to me, Vicky. So effectively, as he learned how young I was, he asked me very quickly to introduce him to my parents. They became family friends, and my parents weren't around much when I was growing up. So I became very much so kind of attached to him, almost like him being my father, right? But at the same time, he would coach me on business and just personal work and things like that. And I think from that point on forward, that's when I had that entrepreneurial bug. So he gave me my first opportunity working under him as an intern for one of his companies called U214. And this company was doing enterprise application development. So we were developing CRMs. So before Salesforce was the big CRM out there that everyone's using, we were developing these from scratch. So our clients were like Rogers, Fido, Sharp, Samsung, like pretty large clients. So these were very complex CRMs, right? About a year into it, I get bored. And I tell Vicky, "Hey, I'm bored." So he says, "Well, great. I have this new company. We're doing Wi-Fi. So schools like Schulich, we would basically provide all the Wi-Fi, cybersecurity, the infrastructure, the piping, the actual cabling, the installation, all that would be done." So that company scaled from 2 million to 20 million in revenue in the span of like 2 years. Wow. So our lifestyles changed quite a bit. And I had the fortune of being there with his business partner, sitting in the same little office in a rented space, and just hearing and observing, how do they run their business? How do they discipline people? How do they hire? How do they fire? How do they find outsourced vendors? How do they, grow business? How do they sell? All this, right? Yeah. So he gave me an opportunity working under a marketing kind of coordination role there. And that was really my sort of entry into enterprise sales. So I got a lot of exposure and working with K to 12. So our customers were like school boards, retail. So think of like Oxford Properties, Cadillac Fairview Malls, like mega properties. And then, a year into it, I'm bored again. So I tell Vicky, "Hey, I'm bored. What do I do?" He says, "Take a hike." So, I take a hike and basically come back to him and I say, "You know what? I think I would like to be an entrepreneur. What do you think of that?" So he encourages me to get into it. And my first venture was a clothing business. So that was kind of at the maybe tail end of my high school time in high school. So I would say maybe, I don't know, grade 12 was the end of high school, so grade 10 or grade 11, something around that. So the whole business model was essentially to partner up with not-for-profits, school clubs, different associations. I have a skill for graphic design. I really enjoy graphic design and art. So I would put together the art, I would put together the graphics, and I'd say, "You know what, if you have a not-for-profit, buy 100 pieces from me. Don't pay for the design. I'll get you really good pricing." I'd just take off the margin, right? So through that, it's a lot of door knocking, right? It's a lot of hustling, but I made enough money to pay my way through my tuition here, which was, knock on wood, also pretty reasonable for domestic students at least. So off of that experience, it was gruesome, like grueling in terms of the hustle, but got a lot of reward out of just building something of my own. So second year in university, I decided to close that up because made enough money and it just wasn't a passion. So having a passion and mixing it with work, two different things. So that kind of then became an agency. So second year university, friends and family, colleagues, my fellow peers in class would just say, hey, can you manage this? Can you do social media? Can you design a logo for me? Can you build a website? Can you manage the website? And I just said yes to everything. So after some door knocking, I managed to sign up a very large agency as our client so that they would outsource work to us.
Nice.
They didn't have a bench, so we were their bench, right? So I found a bunch of technical people and just kind of rallied them together. And at this point, this agency was, our single source of business. So, there was quite a bit of business coming off of it. Second year or third year of university, that's when things really struck gold with this client, where we got Mastermind Toys as a client through them.
Okay.
So although Mastermind Toys didn't realize, okay, it's Title doing the work behind the scenes, that was the first exposure to such a big deal, in terms of my own. So at that point, I asked Vicky to become formally our CTO and his business partner as well to get his support. And this was early days, so we made a lot of mistakes. And off of those mistakes, we decided to actually cut ties with that with that other agency.
I see.
They weren't treating our people well, and we're very much so servant leaders. We really believe in kind of treating people well, and at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? So values-based approach to professional services is what we're all about.
Sure.
If it's all about the people, so let it be about the people. So we decided to part ways, and that was leaving about $3 million of business on the table due to that one relationship. So we basically started from scratch again 3 years ago, and that was the uphill battle for us, was to build up a new book of business, to build up the credibility in the market, to showcase that, yes, we can not only do what these guys are doing, but do it better and faster, and perhaps build it in a way that's a little bit more accessible for people like marketeers or the technical users or who not. So through that experience, now 3 years later, that client that we, since we cut ties with them, Mastermind Toys had to go. We weren't able to just knock on their door. We don't solicit business. We closed that door, so we weren't going to go after Mastermind and say, hey, chat with us. What ended up happening in a very serendipitous manner was that that good karma came back in a way. And so we got that call one day, and we basically took a few meetings. One thing led to another, and now they're one of our marquee clients that I call them, because they still have that kind of place in my heart, I would say.
Awesome.
But as things progressed and things continued to grow, I would say about third year, fourth year university was when we also won Drake as an account. So October's very own, which is
fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely one of the more exciting brands, because myself and my best friend, at the time, we're very big fans of Drake.
Wow.
So it was not about the size of the business. They're not the largest brand out there, but effectively it was the excitement of working with someone that has some association with it, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't realize how big that empire really was, because there's many, many businesses, not just that one, clothing brand. There's probably 5 or close to a dozen different businesses. So through that experience, we just cut our teeth in showcasing what we could do, and we were just true to our word. So at this point, I asked Vicky's brother-in-law formally to become a business partner of mine as well. Vicky's brother-in-law used to be COO of Ogilvy Health World in Dubai. So he used to be a very high, just very respected executive at WPP. So his career has spanned many, many years, and there's a lot of experience internationally. So I was always inspired by him. So I asked Aziz over a very fancy, lunch at IKEA. We went to IKEA, so having meatballs and mashed potatoes, whatever they serve there. The cake is awesome, right? So
I was just about to get into it, but thanks.
the damn cake, yeah, that's right. So off of that experience, I asked Aziz, and he just saw that, whatever we could build, let's just do it together. So we didn't have a plan. So I decided at that point, Title was not really, we didn't have a sales funnel. So it was just kind of starting up. We got lucky with a couple accounts. So Aziz and I actually decided to pivot and start a small agency. We didn't focus on Title initially. We started a smaller agency called Websto, and the whole purpose of that was web stores. The whole idea was like, we can get your web store up and running very efficiently, faster, cheaper than everyone else. So at the same quality, right? So that plan worked out to a certain extent, but what we learned is that small clients and big clients, they're alike in one way, that they want to be given the time of day. So regardless of who the client is, as big as they are or small as they are, the same amount of investment and time goes into it. So we had to prioritize which accounts we would then go after. So we decided to go after the larger mid-market and enterprise accounts and focus again on title. So although web still scaled to a certain degree and we were able to really do well under that, we decided, I asked Aziz if he would formally become my business partner under title. And then the four of us, so Aziz, Vicky, Dave, who's Vicky's business partner, our COO now, we all just kind of banded together. So this is about 2.5, 3 years ago now. And slowly, those accounts continue to grow. And now we're, working with some Fortune 100 and basically trying to revolutionize what it means to be on e-commerce for these big B2B businesses, doing billions of dollars through e-commerce channels. And how do you enable that? How do you take the technology to make it happen? But for myself, I think the most exciting part of it is being able to contribute to very innovative projects like the Drake-related house tour. It's like it's a different version of commerce where it's actually adding friction instead of adding, intuitiveness to get to the cart and the checkout faster. So that's basically the synopsis of, from Schulich or prior to Schulich to where I am today.
That's
Fantastic. That's quite a colorful backstory and
Thank you.
an incredible set of achievements under your belt, Dennis.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So let's talk about title commerce, Dennis. So what's the story behind it? And I mean, you mentioned a bit of it, but how did you enter the world of e-commerce and title commerce?
I would say Title was really initially not called Title. So it was meant to be an agency, all kind of encompassing marketing agency, right? So what's called in our industry a full service agency. Now, that was the struggle. It's like scaling something full service when there's no focus becomes challenging because you're everything to nobody, right? Or you're a little bit of everything, but nothing specific. So about, again, 3 years ago, we decided to really focus on e-commerce as our niche and to basically look at it as e-commerce 360. So really think of us as a utility, plug and play everything e-commerce, regardless of how small or how big you are. You may need a consultant, you may need solutions engineers, developers, whatever it is, right? Agnostic to your situation, but the same way you plug in your toaster into the wall, you don't think of electricity. You shouldn't think of that for e-commerce, right? So putting that into the shoes of the buyers, who are typically CMOs, typically a CIO, director of e-commerce, marketing director. These are people that, frankly, they don't care how the job gets done. Of course, they want it to get done on a good degree, but they wanted just to relieve themselves of this anxiety and stress of always feeling like they're on a rat race. So we kind of plugged into that need of really providing them very high quality staff that is able to just quickly get stuff done. So making it happen, owning your own path, building on it, right? So all those were kind of key pillars of our values that then ended up kind of becoming Title. So today, if I was to distill our vision down, it's really just 3 words. Be the tide, which basically means, be of service to others. So be the tide can mean be of service. It can mean a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we're successful, you're successful. We can all succeed together. But by the same token, it also means, to different people, like for instance, our developers, it may mean be of service to your community, be of service to your family, right? Maybe do something nice for your spouse, right? Or, be that person that you aspire to be. So effectively, where we think of it now is it's really a little bit more philosophical on a vision level. But from a mission perspective, we want to build this to continue to be one of the largest and most respected SIs mixed with consultancy, like a functional consultancy, really specialized in commerce. So yeah, that's about it. I hope that answers it.
That's very inspiring what you said, be the tide.
Thank you.
And I think the way you connected with every element like family and even of course business for sure.
Yes.
And the story that you shared, I think it's really meaningful.
Thank you. I mean, you see, the fact that it means something to you is the whole purpose. So it's not about me, it's about the people at the end of the day, right? So really, when we think of it as be the tide, you may adopt it into your own life. And I often say, okay, let's climb. That's my way of expressing that. So it's about the climb for me, less about the mountain summit, right?
Very positive.
Yeah, thank you.
With that being said, I just wanted to ask, what were your major strategies and key factors that have fueled your rapid business growth?
Absolutely. I would lie to say that I would say that actually my mentor has had the most impact on my life. I'd say, Vicky's influence not only on personal development side but also business. him being our CTO, he has a very specialized role, but I always look to him for advice, and I always look for him to coach because he looks at it very objectively and just gives me the real instead of kind of sugarcoating things or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
I would say the other thing that's really greatly contributed has been my two other business partners. So Dave and Aziz for sure. So in the same vein as what Vicky's done for me, they've provided me with that wisdom and that kind of oversight and those guardrails to ensure that, you know what, at the end of the day, I can move fast, but they'll kind of sort of maybe slow me down, right? And I really appreciate that. I'm very grateful for that. The other thing I would say that's also contributed quite significantly is a group I've joined about a year and a half ago called Entrepreneurs Organization. It's the largest association of entrepreneurs in the world. There's about 16,000 entrepreneurs around the world. So 16,000 companies that are part of this association.
Fantastic.
And it's just been an incredible journey of meeting some of the most inspiring entrepreneurs that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting and working with. So through that, I've been able to enter a very prestigious program at MIT, so a 3-year master's program that's graduated some like 20 billionaires or something like that. So it's given me that access to that kind of alumni as well as that thought leadership. So it's not to say that you cherry pick and you say, oh, this has worked for you, this will work for me, but just the thought of being in that room to say, this is what I'm working. What do you think? How can I make this better, right? So having the humility and just those elements. The one thing I would say that's made the biggest difference is gratitude and leading with that element of humility and just putting your ego aside. The ego does not mean anything in these kind of circles, right? So those 3-4 elements I would say have been the most impactful. There's so much more that I want to give credit to, but I would say if I was to sum it up, those are the big buckets, right?
I think it definitely takes a village.
Yeah, thank you.
And the fact that you are so much grateful for every element that has been on your journey, I think, and the fact that you're saying it here, that really shows a lot.
Yeah,
so thank you for sharing.
It does take a village. You're right? So I mean, you may have a poster child for the company, but people don't often look behind it to say, oh, who did all this work, right? It's like I might drive the team nuts sometimes by telling them what to do and things like that. So I've now tried to step away to not be in that seat as much, right? To let them have the autonomy and things like that. So I appreciate you saying that.
That's incredible. So let's delve a little deeper into the e-commerce industry.
Sure.
So e-commerce and dynamic really go hand in hand. And what can you tell us about key trends within the e-commerce industry and something important that our audience can look out for in the industry?
I think there's 2 buckets that we can maybe form here. So there's the direct-to-consumer, space where it's like consumers like you and I here.
Right.
We shop on Amazon, we shop on Walmart. We go onto our favorite websites depending on which brands we align with most, right? So that's the direct-to-consumer angle, or retail perhaps, right? Then you have the B2B side, which is also kind of very substantial, the underbelly of commerce where there's so much more business that's not visible to people like us. But there's billions and billions of dollars of transactions being put through that, right? Now, that world of B2B is ripe for disruption. There's a lot of legacy systems, a lot of manual processes, right? So the topic of AI and automation comes up often, but where I would say the biggest kind of draw to it is really systemizing and making sure that these tools for B2B can make it possible that you can actually transact online. Because keeping in mind the newer generation, our generation is really coming into these roles of leadership for these massive opportunities for these B2B conglomerates, perhaps, right? So what often is happening is that there's just a demand for these people to say, you know what, this is how I transact on a day-to-day basis. Why should my business be any different? Why can't we make this frictionless? Why can't we digitize this, right? And there's really no reason, right? So it comes down to the next, in line, the next leadership in line that's going to take that by the horn, so to speak, and kind of do something about it. Sure. On the D2C side, however, I'd say the biggest trend right now is really around experiential. And experience is just everything. So it has to do not only with the post-purchase or the pre-purchase, during the purchase, but also the post-purchase. Okay, how fast did I get the product? Did they thank me? Did they give me some deals? How was it packaged? Did the packaging smell nice? When I open it up, did someone follow up with me to ask for a review and for my thoughts? Did they maybe provide me with a special deal after that as well? So all these little factors Could I track when the order is going to come, right? So if it's going to take 2 weeks, is there a page where it says this will take 2 weeks? Here's your estimated date of delivery. These are little details that, heuristically, from a consumer experience perspective, it's what we want to invest into to ensure that our customers, that's really where the magic happens. They're the ones transacting, right? So businesses, I don't think it's anything new, but what we're starting to see is that more and more smaller, medium-sized businesses are taking that into their hands and prioritizing that. Whereas in the past, traditionally, larger enterprises already understood it, but their priorities might be mixed, so they would not focus on it as much. Why we're seeing it now even more is that retention has become a hot topic. So to acquire customers has become much more expensive, right?
Sure.
So really coming from that stream, people want to ensure that they can acquire customers more, I would say, cost effectively, as well as retain them longer. So create a loyalty kind of element out of that. So there's things like community building that we see out there. There's an element of, the loyalty engines that are being kind of really getting a lot of steam out there, right? So Talon One is one that you might hear of, and there's others of similar kind of nature to that do that. So.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful, and I like the fact that you said about consumer acquisition. It's okay, it's all good.
I've been working with a few small MSMEs and few medium-sized companies, and I think customer experience design is the biggest
topic
explosion. Yeah.
It's how do you see it in your day to day?
So I have an education startup, and we deal with different colleges and different universities, and we teach their students. So they want to know what's going to happen from start to the finish. How a student learns nothing, at the start, and goes with their experience and ends with that. And a student requires that information before they join the course. So that entire experience needs to be highlighted for them before we do the course. So initially it was just, we're going to teach you this, but now we're going to take you like this, like that.
So you really think of the student experience. You have to put yourself in their shoes.
You do.
Interesting.
That's great. I think it's so important, like what you were also sharing, and it comes down to customer segmentation. I think that's the funnel we are really thinking that where our loyal customers are, and you want to keep them for a longer time. Not even in longer time, but to have authentic relationship that they're my customers. And I think that makes your journey so much better, and that gives you a lot of space to create, like you were saying, you might even look for other business ideas. And I think when you truly know what your segment is, you really, I think that's one part that you have already solved, and it gives you a good vision. So
Agreed.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Abdul, for sharing that. And now, I know you mentioned about AI.
Yes.
So that's something we were just about to bring out. So let's talk about AI.
Yes, please.
That's something
everyone's looking forward to that.
Hot topic. Yeah.
So Dennis, can you explain how AI and machine learning are changing e-commerce and what it means for both businesses and shoppers?
Oh, great question. Yeah. On the, I'll tell you from an operational perspective, it's definitely enabled us to go faster and maybe be more efficient. So, for example, developers that use AI like ChatGPT, or there is what is called GitHub. So GitHub has what's called Copilot. So there's kind of like this element built into it, right? So that does enable us to be more efficient, to basically get more out of the same people that we have and allow them to maybe be a little bit more prioritize their time, right? So as opposed to spending their time on a little bit more manual tasks, now they can think a little bit more, right? So that's really the main difference in terms of operationally what we've seen. And the same goes for business analysts, consultants, right? It's like ChatGPT is often used as an ideation platform now. Like I see our consultants all the time asking it questions, just taking that body of knowledge and then adjusting it or making it their own, right? It's really the last QA check and the that person that has that seniority putting that kind of bow on ribbon on it. Other than that, so that's from an operational perspective, which of course will increase efficiencies, right? Make more out of your workforce. What I do predict maybe in the next decade we'll see is a little bit more of the 4-day work week proliferation, or perhaps even a 3-day work week at some point, because as we see more and more of these kind of manual tasks will become more and more automated. Right. So it will actually become acceptable and possibly even expected that there's a 4-day work week or 3-day work week, I don't know if that will happen anytime soon, but we'll see where that goes, right?
Yeah.
In our world, we're a little bit more production focused, where it's like always running. Sometimes we're getting calls in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., and we have to act on it. So I am skeptical on how that might actually play into our workday.
Sure.
But on the consumer front, where we see a lot of the AI and machine learning being used, is really on the topic of personalization. So experiential commerce to really think of you as like this is a curated experience. So when you walk into a retail store, let's say you walk into a fancy department store, right? That's
Right.
a good experience of if you have a personal shopper, someone that's there to sort of see through and say, hold my hand. What are you looking for?
Yeah.
Looking for a new blouse? Let me come and show you all of our selections, right?
Yeah.
We're looking for a new suit. Well, here's the new selections. What colors do you like? You like blue? Well, here's the blue ones, right? So think of that, but how do you take that online and how do you provide that personalized touch, right? So this is basically a subset of what we call A/B testing, multivariate testing, right? There's
Sure.
that element of statistics that actually
Yeah.
comes into it, but then using these systems and these logical tools to actually contain this information and make that decision at a real-time basis. So I can kind of differentiate you two as consumers. And if you were to visit my website at the very same time, you will see two different experiences completely tailored to your own needs that will actually drive a little bit more success out of that conversion. So we might make more out of you, or we might retain you longer, whatever the goal may be, right?
Sure.
So the goal is not always just to make money. That's a little brutalistic. Sometimes it's about serving up the right content to this user, as to say, and delight them, right? As to say, oh wow, I wasn't expecting to learn this today when I visited this site, right? So
Right.
they're starting to think of sites more as a location destination because you can shop anywhere. It's pervasive. You can even shop through social media nowadays, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Why would we care to come to your website? That becomes the question, the why, right? So
Very true.
that's where it becomes a little bit more interesting, and that's where there's a little bit more meat to these kind of projects and discussions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think customers are also like they're looking at what you said. Why will they spend that much
Yeah.
of time? Even I would say seconds,
Mhm.
because there's so much of information. Like you said, anybody, anywhere can just get it easily, right?
Yeah.
So the way you design and make it more captive for your customer, I think that's what is. Even if it's this, spend a second, that's
Yeah.
where your customer is.
I agree with you. I think all the students watching this and whoever's watching this, I think should definitely look at some books like Start with Why or Find Your Why. The Simon
Right.
Sinek classics. The why, the purpose is really what people at the end of the day remember. It's not the what you did or how you did it. It's why, right? So that's what resonates the most with people. So I mean, we were just talking about Skims earlier, right? So Kim
Yeah.
Kardashian has a strong why. I don't know what it is, but
Right.
she obviously resonates with some people, right?
Right.
So those are the kind of brands that you think that I believe that will last generations. When we talk about companies lasting over a century, so over 100 years, those are the type of brands that really know their why and their purpose, right? A purpose is basically a why mixed with a mission. So it's like,
Right.
what am I doing or why am I doing it mixed with like, how am I actually going to achieve it?
Very
Just a subset of that.
I think every generation has that oh what a time to be alive moment. I think
Yeah.
AI is that time for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, awesome.
It's a little scary though, right? It's like everyone's like, am I going to lose my job? I don't know, right? So newsflash, probably not yet, but
Probably.
maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much with AI. Like I was watching a YouTube video and I saw like what AI could do, and I think it's like the video was probably an year back, but I saw it now.
Right.
And I showed it to my professor, and he was like, "I know this, but I know it's very scary for you because, like, this robotic hand right behind you."
Yeah.
And in Japan, they could really actually make skin on the robot,
Wow.
and they're working on like even the tiny details where hair can grow. So they're already on it,
That's scary.
and they also got onto because Japan is like very, like work oriented
Yeah.
place. People don't have time. It's funny that they also came up with toys like I think AI innovative toys, like it's like a
Oh.
whole box where you have this lady,
Wow.
so she will text him, "Hey, I'm your home." So yeah, like,
That is
Yeah.
creepy, and scary.
it's very scary. And not only that, they have only this size, but now they have this human size.
Oh my
Somebody
God.
in that.
I just watched a trailer for Chucky the other day. I don't know
Oh.
if you guys. It reminds me
Yeah,
of this,
yeah.
like the serial killer little
That
doll.
was
It's like, oh
really-
my God, like creeps me out. So, I see a lot of like the robotic stuff that you're talking about is it's definitely like I have no idea where it's gonna go, but just observing it I think is fascinating, right? So
It is.
Yes. So let's try to shift a little towards e-commerce again from AI.
sure.
Talk to us about low-code and no-code platforms, Dennis.
Okay.
They are huge in many other industries. So are they changing e-commerce's landscape?
I would say yes and no. It depends who you ask. So, larger enterprises, the Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s, may see a little bit more of the use cases of low code, no code when it comes to applying it to like a marketeer's job. So, like a CMO, director of marketing, maybe coordinators. So, when we talk about CMSs, content management system, and allowing people just use it, you don't have to have a PhD, you don't have to have a developer. Just take this, build whatever you want. So, you want a landing page, build it, right? That's one way of looking at it. Now, the other way of looking at it is that, what are you trying to achieve? What's the end goal? So if you're really trying to achieve something unique and you have to build something a little bit more differentiated, so like maybe the layout or the actual site experience is non-traditional, then there's really no kind of low code, no code. It's like low code, no code is, in my mind, what's the speed to market? So, how fast can we get an MVP? That's the real use case of low code, no code. So there are certain tools that we will even use internally. One is called Retool, which allows us to essentially it's like a database. It's like a Notion. So if you guys have heard of Notion, kind of married up with like a triggering platform like a Zapier, right?
Nice.
So there's databases in there. There's relationships that you can make between all these databases, and then you can trigger different things, right? So in the world of no code, low code, e-commerce, that's definitely a fit in. That's a shoe in.
Sure.
But in most cases, most retailers, there's no one kind of infrastructure that looks alike. So they're all going to be different unless they're a smaller firm and just literally only using Shopify or like whatever commerce engine they have.
Right.
What I'm seeing is like the larger players, that's where it's going to become a little bit more interesting. But even so, today, a lot of them don't use it because they much more prefer just to create their own, right?
Right.
So the low code, no code elements might end up having very niche use cases. Like for example, a client of ours wanted to have an app where you have two buttons. One says "Make it rain," and basically when the person clicks the button, it's a celebrity. They would click the button on the website. Everyone would get $100. So if you're on the website, you get $100, and you can interact with this app. So that was kind of like we architected using one of those low code, no code solutions because, frankly, it was not very well thought out. So the concept was just a concept, and they wanted kind of how do we get this out the door as soon as possible? Okay, here's a solution, right? So that's an example, but I think it's really going to be used more by internal teams, maybe even by people like us that are like, I don't want to spend an arm and a leg to get this done. I just need to figure out a way. Let me use this tool and figure out on my own. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I'm terrible at coding, so
Awesome.
low code, no code is
That's the way to go
my
for you?
way to
Yeah,
go.
okay, good.
I think like people like me as well, because I really don't come from the technology background where I've even touched.
Yeah.
And I think what you said makes sense, because I think people are now like they're curious about this part and they want to learn.
Yeah.
So like I think that is like a point where you can create user friendly tools for such people. And with that,
you're going to see actually even more of this. So just to connect the AI conversation, you're going to see those tools. I think that will be more of a low code, no code tool, because you can ask it just in your own language, create me a web page with XYZ.
Oh yeah.
Right. That's what our CTO is working on at the moment. He's just having a blast creating like his own websites, and it's all generative AI that's creating it. Right. So like I see that probably as something that us will probably end up adopting first before any of these like specialized like low code, no code tools, right? Because every tool has its place, right? So it's like we're not going to learn a new Excel just for the sake of creating a website, but we might ask ChatGPT rather, like, hey, I need a web page. This is what the brief is, and it might spit that out, right? So I'm sure all of us will go home and try that today.
That's good. I think you answered my question, but is there anything else you would like to add about like if there are some like user friendly or solid resources for individuals coming from different perspective of their career life?
If someone's coming from a non-tech perspective, I think that's a great way to like yourselves, right? I think both of you, right? I think it's a great way just to sort of get into it, just immerse yourself into technology. It will be overwhelming, but I think you mentioned this prior. It's like, take it one step at a time. Just really look at it as,
Sure.
you don't need to learn everything. You just need to understand it. You need to understand what's happening, and you need to be able to direct. So you don't need to do everything. You can ask people and you understand your gaps.
Right.
But you both have skills that are going to be invaluable, that are going to be so valuable for those other pieces that are going to be critical to growing those businesses, right? So not getting bogged down to understand that if your skill's not tech, so be it. It is what it is. Like,
Right.
we got handed these cards, right? So we're going to make most of it. So really understanding if that is the case, maybe you want to partner with someone
Mhm.
that has that counterpart, right?
Right.
But that you can trust, right? That's the key.
Very true.
So
Thank you.
yeah, no
I
problem.
think I'll be taking a shot at that Gen AI no code, low code website.
Yeah,
I've been waiting to make one.
Yeah.
awesome.
So Dennis, for a business, when is the right choice to sell in an established marketplace,
Mhm.
and when is the right call to build their own e-commerce store?
We recently went through this on our own. So my partner is very fortunate to have a very large family business out of Shenzhen in China,
Oh,
an international trading company that does basically sells baby products and
okay.
cycles and strollers and all
Nice.
that. So his family business is very large in Asia.
Okay.
Now, what he's done is he didn't necessarily want to be working in Asia, so he figured, strategically, let's start a company here in Canada, our
Right.
own products, our own baby products. We can sell those. So that was our entry into D2C of our own, into launching a brand. And it's gone well. It's scaled to about 5 million in sales in its first year.
Excellent.
It's done very well. But I think the challenge of it is as you asked, is like, where do you launch first? Is it a marketplace? Is it a direct to consumer site? Is it a retail pop up? What do you do?
Right. Right.
So I think the answer is not clear still to this day.
Okay.
I think you have to do a little bit of everything, but you do everything well. So whatever you can do that you can really put out a quality product,
Right.
that's what you focus on. So if you can only focus on doing the marketplace first and you do that really well, focus there. So in our case, we really scaled well with Amazon and other marketplaces. We're still working on getting live on Target and Walmart. But the marketplaces ended up being like captive eyeballs, right? So using those captive eyeballs, we're able to drive sales through that. Now the next challenge becomes, how do you scale the D2C? Because there's no captive eyeballs there, right? So, and advertising is very expensive. So in that world, it's a little bit of kind of just playing around with it. You have to experiment. There's no right way. There's really no correct way of achieving that success, but it happens very quickly. So the key as well is just to ensure that if you're trying to strive for a certain, let's say, even revenue figure, or perhaps a fulfillment amount, understanding that you can fulfill it successfully. Like the fulfillment is the last mile is just as important as the purchase journey, right?
Very
If you purchase something, let's say you purchased a new suit online and you're waiting 2 months to get it, and by the time it arrives, it's all, the packaging is all messed up.
Right.
Your suit may be ripped. You're not going to be very happy. You're likely never going to buy from this company again, right? So that psychology of the consumer, understanding that and understanding where they shop, right?
Right.
So perhaps they're not going to shop on your website. Maybe they're never going to find it. So then focus on a marketplace. Get the easy kind of, wins, so to speak, right? So I hope that answers it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very critical decision for any company to make. And like you said, like there's no right or wrong answer to it.
Yes.
It's more like you have to get through what it takes for you to get through an experience and then make a wise choice. And I think the example you shared about the code makes sense.
Yes.
In the end, it counts like how your consumer is feeling about it,
Yeah.
and you want it back. So yeah.
If you guys have heard that saying, they'll remember how you made them feel, right? So
Yes.
it's visceral to that whole why statement. That why is how you made them feel, right? So it all comes back to that, as woo-woo as it sounds.
Yeah, I think I'm going to skip this question because we did cover that.
We
Okay.
did.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
you wanna go ahead.
So, okay, I'll be honest. I really love how fundamentally clear you are about the industry and your place in it. So, as a young entrepreneur, what are your personal goals, and what is your vision for Title Commerce?
Oh, great. I have just gone through an exercise to do this, so this is good timing. For myself, I struggled with really trying to identify what is it that my own personal life is versus my company life is, right?
Yes.
As an entrepreneur, one thing that you'll see often is that entrepreneurs often identify with their companies so much so that they are their company.
Right.
And I didn't want to be in that. So I didn't want to feel like, if one day the company's not there, what's my identity? I wanted to have my own identity outside of the company.
Right.
And this came about, frankly, just kind of from a practice of like trying to articulate how do I make decisions, right? So I needed to create a blueprint for my own. So defining my own personal values was kind of a starting point. So I've got 5 of them. So the first is own your own path, which in my mind is like, you know what, you can plan your own success, right? So things will come at you different ways, but have the discipline, own it, right? Number 2, make it happen, right? So if you're really thinking about something, just go and do it. Don't get stuck in the planning, just make it happen, right? There's other values like this that I've tried to basically synthesize, and then off of that, I was able to create kind of a purpose mission statement, right? So personally, for my own, like what I look to achieve, and not only Tidal, but any of the ventures we work on, is to basically simplify complex situations to enable people to do more, or to enable people to achieve, right? So it's not about me achieving, it's more about using my skill set of saying, maybe you guys are speaking 2 different languages, you're not on the same page, I'm able to kind of get you guys to connect and understand each other, and then using that, just not micromanage you, but let you do your job and get on with it. And then I'm moving on to the next, and then on to the next, right? So that's become really what I would say is my own mission, is just to ensure that I'm achieving those simple fundamentals. And off of that, gratefully, like the whole gratitude piece of it is important to me in the sense that there are ways that we can express that, right? So for Tidal specifically, one of the values we set out is to actually be kind to one another and to our planet. So there are things that, I personally want to now put my weight a little bit more behind that are a little bit more charitable in nature. So we're doing an empowerment drive to support basically 10 minority-owned entrepreneurs, donating about 1,000 hours of service work to provide, opportunities to help these people scale their businesses, right? Give them like the McKinsey, WPP trained consultants, like, here you go, there you go, kind of like giving those little opportunities. So it's that's what I would distill it down to be. Tidal itself, the mission is a little bit more critical, like bogged down in numbers. So at the moment, what we're striving to do, our big, hairy, audacious goal is 200 managed services clients. That would establish ourselves as one of the largest in North America in terms of that business unit. And then continue to be like seen as a very sort of just well-respected thought leader, kind of mixing strategy, technology, consulting, all in between. So like a functional SI that is able not to only integrate and to give you those resources, but also to actually provide that thought leadership and to provide that innovation, to be that partner that clients are searching for. So it's worked really well with the celebrity brands. They really, buy into this vision and mission because it's a similar value that they have. And now we're seeing the same type of success with mega Fortune 100s that are like, we just need to work fast. Like, we don't want to be bogged down by all this bureaucracy and politics. Like, can we just get on to our day job? Can we just do work, right? So that's become kind of part of it. Wow, too many words, but
it's amazing.
Thank you.
It's such an exceptional story, and I think we can connect with it because it's very authentic. I would say it's not like you just have some numbers in head,
right,
and you want to just reach, but you had like so many elements, like you shared, like just if you have a mission, you do it. You don't think like, okay, next, right? And discipline, like you mentioned, I think that has to be with consistency.
Yes.
No matter who you are meeting in the industry, and you said like hitting even mega 100 fortunes.
Yes.
And I think that is like they also connect well with you because of the kind of impact you're having. All right, thank you so much, Dennis, for sharing your exceptional stories. I think we all here could connect with it. They were so authentic. And before we wrap up, would you like to share some of your thoughts which were related to your stories here at Schulich, and any advice, words of wisdom you want to share with the club members and students here, and even the tech enthusiasts out there?
The tech enthusiasts, yes. There's so many thoughts in my mind, but if I was to maybe distill down a fond memory, start with that. Just a fond memory has been, I think, one of the first Schulich startup nights, or perhaps events that we had here, the VIP events. I don't remember who he brought out, but I remember fondly meeting with Mark Orland, who used to be the director of IT. He recently passed away, but he was just, it was interesting because Chris was kind of at the very beginning of building the Schulich Startups initiative with Vito and the rest of the crew. And just, it was a nice kind of entry into meeting a lot of people that were already very successful in their career. And just, it was actually, I think, in that new building, that new kind of room, right? So that sort of triangle space room. Definitely a fond memory, right? With the hors d'oeuvres and the finger foods and all that.
Food is something you'll always remember.
Right? Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, I don't know how good it was, but it was pretty, I still remember it for some reason. But in terms of imparting wisdom, I would say that, really thinking of servant leadership is, it's not a trend, it's not a fad. It's a real way of kind of leading. It's a real way of leading your life as well. So thinking of your values and being true to your values and understanding what your own personal purpose and vision is, I think is the best thing that you can do for yourself. If you understand that, you'll be successful on anything you do. So spend the time, read a few books. 7 Habits of Effective People. To start with why, find your why. Have a look at Simon Sinek. The Last Lecture is another book that I've just recently read that I think would be fantastic. So really try to embody that. I think if everyone tries a little bit harder to do that, maybe there'll be less pain in the world. So that's what I would leave it at.
Well, I'll be honest. I never thought of the e-commerce industry in a certain way. I mean, it's changed now thanks to you. So this is off the script. But do you have any skill sets or anything that the current students can pick up on so that it's an easy transition into a career into the e-commerce?
Yeah, I've really had a lot of respect for management consultants. So consulting analysts or consulting associates. So if you take like an Accenture or a Deloitte or a McKinsey, I think a McKinsey kind of being a different class of its own.
Right.
And when you really look at that skill set of that, what does a management consulting associate or analyst do? They're adaptable, they're meeting people. So they're like a mix of a project manager, maybe they're a program manager if they've managed a lot of projects, but having the ability to be not only client facing, but also to do the grunt work, not to complain, to be able to pivot when you need to, being adaptable, being resilient, right? Those are the skill sets that even today when I'm hiring or when we're hiring as a team, it really comes down to, does this person have that attitude? And I find time and time again that those type of roles definitely have it. So just maybe taking a little bit of that job description, seeing what are they looking for, identifying your own gaps and saying, how can you really apply yourself there? Because if you start your career there, especially after a master's and MBA, what it gives you is the exposure to so much diversity in terms of projects and scale, right? They might give you a massive project or you might be working on something smaller, but you still have that opportunity to learn. And that's almost like, that's your real MBA, right? The fake MBA is the one you do in school, but the real world is really like how you get, sometimes you'll have very bad days, but then other times you'll be on top of the world, right? So taking that as maybe a stepping stone, and then that will enable you then to graduate into something else, like being a senior, engagement manager, or maybe if you aspire to be a partner, or you can then take that same skill set and apply it to your own startup, which I know that you're working on, right? So I think that's definitely something that if I was to do it all over again, I'd probably look at those kind of, job description roles or expectations or outcomes that we call them. Yeah.
Very true. Thank you so much, Dennis.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you for having me.
That was really great.
Yeah. Parul, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah. So I would just say, thank you for sharing. I think what you said about the skills, I think more like it comes down to who you are.
Yes.
Because in the end, I think we're working with humans, and no matter who they are, and I think if you know how to deal with each and understand and connect with them, I think that's where, even of course, your skills matter.
Yes.
But then coming back to how you can actually adapt.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think I've been kind of paying attention to, you mentioned if you know your gaps, you know your why.
Yes.
And that something comes down to your curiosity level.
Yeah.
So I think it takes what you're ready to adapt to, if you understand, and how you're going to go, and then comes down to your attitude. So I think being positive and having that humility makes sense. So,
what Vicky would say is, attitude is everything, which I agree with. But to your point, right? I think all of us are going to experience what we call brick walls in our careers, in our personal lives, We're going to experience tragedy. We're going to experience, just amazing things that happen to us, terrible things, everything in between, right?
Right.
But the brick walls that you experience, they're there for a reason, right? They're there to show you how badly do you want it. So if you're tenacious, if you're ambitious enough for it, and you continue showing up and continue to be resilient, you'll get over that brick wall, right? But not everyone does, and that's okay. There's no judgment in that, right? It is what it is. But if that's what you really want, understanding that you need to put in that work, right? There's no elevator to success. It really is that work. But I hope I've really enjoyed the time with you guys. So thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, really.
Thank you.
Pleasure
We
is all
truly enjoyed
ours.
too. Yeah. And yeah, like I think this was amazing. I'm just going back to the script.
Sure.
And yeah, like I think thank you for listening and see you on the next one. And I think we do have our BTC Instagram page and as well as LinkedIn. So anything that's coming new, we can always like have a look on that and we'll make sure to just update you as soon as possible for the next one. So thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Follow them.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow.